Greetings programs, welcome to some CK2, and before we get into the video proper I decided I'd actually preface it by looking at a couple of things that are new. Now the game I'm running with Scotland is actually pre-Rajas of India, and that added a whole new area to the map, namely all this bit over here. There has also been a much more recent expansion which added a whole bunch of new mechanics and basically gave us an earlier start date as well. It moved the earliest possible start date, I think if you've got the expansion, I'm not sure, back to 769 or 768 or something like that, but it's nearly 100 years on the previous Old Gods start date. So you get extra game time, you get a different beginning scenario, and also there are some interesting new mechanics. One of the most notable is that you can, if you fulfill certain starting conditions and then go on to meet certain other conditions, you can create merchant republics. Now, I think it's only if you're playing as one of these pagan characters, and you can also, you don't have to form a merchant republic, you can go on to form a regular feudal dynasty, but if you meet the right options, you can form a merchant republic, and playing as one of those, it's a good way to make lots of money. You might not necessarily grab as much land, but it's a good way to get filthy rich. However, the patch seems a bit buggy, because I started another game, tried it, and it kind of messed up the inheritances for the Republic somewhat. The other thing that is new is the ability to create, you get the chance at least once, if you don't have it already, to create either a kingly title or an emperor title, an empire title. And these are what are known as titular titles, and that's because they're not actually connected to land holdings. Now, you do have to have your realm over a certain size, which is what this indicator up here is, but as long as you meet that requirement, as long as you have 3 duchies in the case of creating a new kingly title, it basically will base your new regnal title off whatever your primary duchy was, and for me it was the Duchy of York, although I renamed it Richmond just because, and the kingdom I called Yoxford because I started off as York and married the Countess of Oxford, and that formed the basis of my power. So yes, very imaginative, right? But as you can see, I've conquered most of England at this point. I actually could create the English title, but again, inheritances are a bit of a problem. Now, partly it's for in-game reasons, and it's not to do with bugs at all. If I create another primary title at this stage, which I could do, laws, that's what I'm looking at, then when I die, if I have more than one male heir, because at the moment only male heirs can actually inherit with my current available laws, the titles would be split between them, and because one of them would be a geographically tied title, that would be England, and the other would be this non-geographic regal title that I've come up with, it would only come with a couple of counties basically, so whichever character got the primary title would be a bit stuffed. So it makes making sure you've only got one primary title quite important. It also means that the what's available to me right now, I've got my vassals doing all kinds of things, and I'll quickly cover the issue it caused in that once I created that titular kingly title, what happened was the game it just decided my dynasty didn't have any heirs, which was a bit ridiculous, because if we look at the dynasty tree, as you can see, I have several male relatives still living, and where are we? Not her. There we go. I've got one cousin who is of the correct dynasty. I've got a cousin on this side, a male cousin, who himself has a son. I have a son now myself, but basically once I created that title, the game went, if you lose the title, if your character dies, that's it, you've lost the game, even though there were still many members of House Oxford still alive, including my father, the character of my father, who for some reason when I inherited, it just skipped straight over, so that was another bit of weirdness with this particular thing. So yeah, it was a bit odd. I think there are still some bugs to work out with this patch, but on the whole it mostly runs okay. Sometimes the new features work perfectly, other times there are bugs. I actually tested out the Merchant Republic thing, and basically the game decided, for whatever reason, that instead of the normal inheritance system for the primary title of obviously of the the Grand Republic, the Doge-Ship or whatever you'd call it, the game decided instead, because my character was the next, the son of my character was the next in line, basically, rather than one of the other patrician families. And what happened was the game, for some reason, and I don't know why, decided that we were at that point just an ordinary republic. At which point I lost the game because you can't play as an ordinary republic, which is just a county or any group of titles just ruled by an ordinary city, basically. And the thing about merchant republics is they have to be based on a coastline, so it's possible that for whatever reason the game decided when I died and my heir inherited, it shifted the primary title, the seat of the primary title inland away from a coastal province, and therefore the game went, oh, you're just an ordinary republic, and game over. So that was slightly annoying. So there are some bugs to fix with that. But having said that, it's still a bit more stable and it's still a bit less buggy than the most recent EU4 expansion, which has definitely had some more serious problems when it comes to multiplayer especially, but also just stability problems. I've actually had it crash a lot more since that was all patched in. I haven't actually bought the latest expansion for EU4, unlike this, where I actually went and paid full price for the expansion, the Charlemagne expansion. With EU4, I just decided I'll wait until it's on sale. But the thing with Paradox Games is, with EU4 and CK2 anyway, is they release a patch with the stuff in it, but you have to then go and buy the expansion to unlock some of the features from that patch, essentially. So even though you might not necessarily have the expansion, and it's a nice thing actually, if you're playing multiplayer with somebody that does have the expansion and they're hosting the stuff, you get access to all that stuff as well. It's actually a pretty nice system. So on to what I'm really looking at here, which is a mod. And you've already heard how I created, Yoxford, and I've been changing the names of duchies as well, because that should be Lancaster and or Lancashire or whatever, and I changed it to Westland in a fit of, inventiveness, because that's so inventive, right? What we're looking at now is the Shattered World mod, and this is by Travis Daly, who is that's his Steam name anyway. I don't know if he goes by a different name elsewhere, but you can get it on the Steam Workshop. And basically what it does, you might be noticing, there are an awful lot of individual counts still left around. There are a couple more dukes, and the only other sort of king level title is the papacy, and it starts off with a king level title because it's the papacy. But basically it creates a completely even playing field. Everybody starts off as a count, and it introduces some interesting challenges. And having built up to the size of a kingdom with a titular title, I've ended up with a couple of very, very powerful dukes. You can see there the Duke of Westland and the Duke of Mercia, and we've had a couple of civil wars that I've only just come through by the skin of my teeth. There was one of them where they both basically declared against me to change my succession law to open elective, which means any of my vassals can take the main title. And it wouldn't be disastrous, but it would require... it's annoying more than anything else. It requires jockeying for position and currying favour with people to try and get their votes to get your person, your heir, your character into, back on the throne, basically. But the others have been a bit more serious. We had one where the Duke of Mercia actually declared war, trying to take my title from me entirely and declare himself the king. And I only just came through that because I had the assistance of the Duke of Westland there. And as you can see, he's actually got a fair whack of vassals under him. So yeah, Mercia is not quite so bad, but again, I think Leicester's actually one of his vassals, and he's having a bit of problems with one of his counts at the moment, or countesses as the case may be. But I'm trying to clear up the rest of England and have a few more dukes around, so that if I do have more civil war type events, at least there's a greater chance that they're not all just going to flip against me. But the thing with the earlier starting date is, like I mentioned, it kind of, the laws that you get, you're kind of quite restricted. and you can only start to do various things once you get to the higher levels of Crown Authority. And that's incredibly difficult, because I actually managed to get as far as low Crown Authority, and that was yet another civil war to lower it back down to minimum Crown Authority. And that was one that both those powerful dukes took part in, so I basically had no choice but to accede to their demands. So it's an interesting mod, and it's quite a challenge. It's actually been quite fun building up from one county. And there are, if you're starting in the right place, you can, I was able to very quickly marry a countess. Everybody starts off unmarried, basically, so there's a bit of a scrabble for finding suitable spouses. But because of that, I was able to expand relatively quickly. But the thing with CK2 is, and we're actually, there's a group of friends we're looking at doing this mod multiplayer at some point. It kind of has a natural limit on expansion, because even just having gotten to this size, I'm already having serious trouble with powerful vassals. And although other people aren't so much of a threat right now, there are other forces within, even just the British Isles that are starting to consolidate more. So Scotland's kind of settled down to, I think, 2 different dukes, and there's is he a duke? No, he's just a count. So there's 1 or 2 counts still left alive. Independent. Ireland's still pretty much up for grabs, but Wales is pretty much unified. So trying to take on Wales would be interesting if I had some other event happen at the same time, because I was going at a fairly rapid pace of expansion at first, and then I've slowed right down just because I started having all these vassal troubles. So if this looks interesting to you, and I think it is interesting, it gives you a pretty different early game experience, and the later game experience is probably going to be quite different as well, because of course different kingdoms will form, and we've already had 1 or 2 titles come out which have lesser requirements. You can see there Leon and Navarra are both actually no, they're both still duchies at that level. I'm getting totally confused. I did say that already, didn't I? That there's only one. Yeah, I did. But it's going to be interesting to see, because it's not just like you start off with a regular game of CK2, and you can kind of predict, at least for the first little while, how it's going to go, just based on the existing large countries that are around. But this totally flattens the playing field, and so it's going to be a totally different experience every single time. You don't know which counties and duchies are eventually going to form, which kingdoms, and how far they're going to expand, and it's quite interesting. The AI does take a little while, though. I mean, you do have a bit of a head start in terms of if you push for aggressive expansion, you can do a lot better than the AI will for the same space of time. And you can see there, I'm 50 years in, and there are still a lot of individual counties around. But yeah, it's on Steam. It's a pretty easy download. It runs just as well. It doesn't really change any of the other core game mechanics. It's updated to run with Charlemagne, so you might want to give it a go. I just thought I'd throw this in as a kind of a mini mod spotlight, because I'm rather enjoying myself with this. And it's also just to show that I am also in between doing the Scotland stuff. I'm playing the more up-to-date version of the game anyway. But now this is all over, and I've whittled on for nearly 15 minutes, I will quit out of this. I will go into Steam, I will go into the betas, I will set it back to the correct version, and we will go play as Scotland. So here we are, back on the old familiar map, and yeah, it's a bit smaller. For those that don't know, I mean, I mentioned just before before we went to the edit, cut, wipe, whatever, that yeah, the betas thing in Steam. If you don't know, and I don't know if this is with all Paradox games, but certainly with the CK2, if you go and right-click and select properties for the game, and go to the betas tab, you can basically get older versions of the game. So if a major update comes out, like say Rajas of India, that changes the map, or even I think Charlemagne, I'm not sure if that's back compatible, because I think that maybe added some bits to the map as well. But what happens is you can keep playing those old save games, as I am playing this older save game, through basically telling Steam to get an older version of the game through that betas tab. So that's a handy thing if you don't know about it. Somebody actually commented under one of my videos and said, this must be really old footage. Well, actually, no, it's bang up to date. It's just Steam is pretty good like that. It used to be with, obviously, a game on a disc, you could choose whether to update it or not, but Steam doesn't really let you have that choice. At least not with a lot of games. You basically can't play them unless it updates them. So to have the option to play an older version and not to have to play the most recent patch is quite nice. And also, if you want to play with friends, you can then just whack it back up to the up-to-date version, and hey presto, Bob's your uncle, for the cost of like 50 megabytes worth of data each time. So it's really a nice feature. Oh, I have a prisoner apparently. I should probably have a little check. It's been, I don't even know how long. So I have some people I can ransom, and I will ransom them, but he is a no, and she is a no, and she is also a no. I will, who's this guy? We'll release this guy. The kids might be worth some money. People are usually willing to pay for their kids if they've got enough cash. So the state we left the game in, yeah, as you can see, Denmark's actually colonized. I think that was just at the end of the last video. I seem to recall that Denmark was keen on some sausages to go with their bacon. Europe itself, yeah, it looks a bit different from Shattered Worlds, doesn't it? You can see why Shattered World is an interesting change of pace. Holy Roman Empire is having one of its periods of upheaval, but as for the rest of it, it's lots of fairly stable, large-ish kingdoms. Although Portugal's popped out, and Spain generally is looking a bit fractured at the moment. That's not really had any great unification yet, but it might do at some point. You can get, as characters, you can get, one of the nicer ambitions is to get a particular title or form a particular... can you get an empire? Maybe you can't even get an empire ambition. But you can basically get an unlimited casus belli for that, an unlimited way to not. What am I saying? You can declare war without the usual kind of having to wait and make claims on people and all that kind of thing. I'm particularly scatterbrained tonight. I don't know why, but we'll fast forward. I will. Put the game on a slightly faster speed. Someone complained that I don't show enough. Well, honestly, if I didn't cut out as much as I did and didn't skip forward as much as I did, this would be a much slower series than it already is. And it's not like it's already a particularly fast series to begin with. Oh, okay. So, the Count of Katanas, Caithness. Yeah, that might be interesting. I might have a war with Norway at some point. But anyway, yes, I do believe I was... Yeah, if this happens, or if something else happens, if I do get that claim on Tyrone that I want, then we will come back into it. Oh, or not. He has made use of the claim, so we might have a war sooner rather than later. But no immediate declaration, so okay, yes, I think we're safe to fast forward a bit. So I shall see you on the other side of the wipe. Well, that really didn't take long at all. You can never tell with claims. It will either take years and years and years and years, or it will happen inside of a month. And I think I'd had the Chancellor there for a little while, but this is, having just played a couple of months of game time, bam, there we go. And I've got more than enough money and more than enough prestige to actually say, use it. And now I have a claim on Tyrone, and now I can declare war on Tyrone and hopefully then create a Duchy of Ulster. Although I don't have all of the titles, as you can see the Duke of Albany's got Ulster itself, but I can get enough to make Ulster. Now I'll just do a quick check. What do I need? If I click the de jure button, so I just need these 3 counties here, basically. So I can immediately deploy my Chancellor, or redeploy him, and get him set to work elsewhere. So I actually have to declare war first. This game doesn't let you declare war and have raised your levy troops, although any special troops, like for instance your retinue troops, are, that's fine. Although I didn't mention with Charlemagne actually, but they're kind of nerfed retinues. You get less retinue troops available for the actual cap usage, and they come in kind of smaller units, generally about 250. Although the biggest you can get is 550. So that's probably a good thing, though. They will probably were in need a bit of a nerf. So I can claim Tyrone, and apparently the Duke of Albany has also got a claim, but I don't want to have him as a particularly massively powerful duke, because in my Oxford game I was having quite enough problems with powerful dukes, so we'll just claim it for myself. I can't actually hold any more counties without, or even baronies, whatever, without incurring penalties, but I can foist it off on somebody else. Now we will raise just my own levies, which at this point, I can raise a respectable number of troops, and another 4,000 from my vassals as well. So I feel like if England invaded at this point, maybe we'd have a fighting chance, but I might still need to hire some mercenaries, and I've got enough coin for it now as well. In fact, having just seen how much I've got, I should probably think about, while all those troops are marching into place, I should have a think about upgrading one of my castles, maybe? Now, the temptation is always to just spend it on things that get you more money, and that's a good long-term investment, but improvements that also get you more troops are quite important as well. So I am just flicking through and seeing what's available and what's not available. I think I get the most of anything from Finlagan at the moment, so I will invest something there. Now I can get 30 pikemen, I can get 55 light cavalry, which might actually be more useful, or I can get 60 infantry of various mixed types. And then the training grounds gives you I won't get that one, that's quite expensive, that would be most of my current cash, but that's various useful things like extra morale, improved levy reinforcement rate when your troops aren't actually raised, and I should probably pause it actually, and increased retinue cap. But I think what we will go for is we'll go for stables, and we'll have some extra cavalry, and that's most of my remaining cash. But I am doing quite well financially at the moment. I could actually probably just stand those troops down. The 3,000 I've already got in Ulster, rather than wait for those guys to appear. For some reason he's decided, as I'm marching into Tyrone, he's going to march into Ulster. I don't quite know why. Well, apparently I can also invest in some tech points. Now, it's always worth checking your tech points regularly anyway, but the game actually tells you if you get to a point where you can invest in, I think, more than one tree, and you can see I can invest in either military or culture. It's not really a tree, it's more just a straight up progression bar system. So what's available? Well, I can have, I know when it tells you. It tells you if you can put in any of them on any particular advance column. So it's not that I've got potentially two lots I could put into, it's the fact that every one of these buttons is clickable, and that's when it tells you. So it's always worth checking, but it will tell you if this particular situation occurs, which is quite nice. So military organisation is always quite useful. You can increase the fighting ability of the various actual troops, but military organisation, again, it's morale, retinue cap, and also supply limit, which means you can have more troops in an individual province if you've raised troops without then having a penalty, because if you are over the limit for any individual province or any individual county, what happens is that you get attrition and you start to lose troops out of that particular stack. So that's quite useful, but mostly it's the retinue cap that I'm going for with the military organisation investment there. I might also, while I'm here, invest in popular customs, maybe. Majesty might be quite useful because that's extra prestige and piety. Tolerance, I think we'll go with Majesty, because that gives me a little boost every month. And you can actually, a nice thing about Paradox games is, for the most part, they do give you good information, and they give you detailed breakdowns of exactly what is giving you what. So you can see there, it's the breakdown of the titles giving me the various, how much prestige they give me, and then at the bottom it's a multiplier based on my technology level. So I've actually just increased that, and again, piety is the same there. So having said that, somebody actually asked me the other day, we were testing out the Shattered World multiplayer prior to trying it with more than 2 people, and he wasn't sure where the financial screen was. But having said that, of this group of friends, I have played by far the most in this. I've got over 300 hours logged in Steam I think, at this point, or maybe just under 300 hours in Crusader Kings 2. I have played this game quite a lot, haven't I? But basically, yeah, this is where you find your income, is by clicking on the little shield that's under your character portrait, and you can actually, again, you mouse over and it tells you exactly the exact composition, the exact breakdown of everything. And it also tells you what penalties, and that's one of the things, because we were doing the Shattered World thing and going way over our demesne limits in order to, get the right counters we needed to form duchies and also get enough cash. But if you hold too many, you get a penalty to your demesne income, basically. And Duke of Lothian, fabricate a claim on the Kingdom of Scotland. That could potentially be a threat, and that's this guy who apparently has pretensions to the throne, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. I do have yes, I do have it set so that, oh, I did, I'll have to click that. There's a button and it auto kind of stops plots, or it kind of automatically sends envoys to those people that will stop plots if you ask them, which is quite nice. You don't have to do that. But there isn't, I mean, there was one of the mods that adds a similar thing, and if you have a bunch of prisoners, it gives you an intrigue decision, and you can click it, and it will release all prisoners or ransom all prisoners. And if you get a lot of prisoners all at once, it's really annoying to click through them individually, and you have to click there, and you have to click thing, and then you have to click that, and then you have to go back to the intrigue screen, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again. That gets annoying more than a couple of times in a row. So that's an improvement that could be made. And I was going to say something about mouse overs as well. So a thing we figured out when doing the multiplayer is, although you get mouse overs for things like penalties for having too many demences, too many counties, it tells you what financial cost that incurs, and oh dear, I'm ill apparently. It doesn't give you the same for troops, so troop levels are variable based on things like your military skill and I think your demesne size and any penalties, but it doesn't tell you exactly. And it would be quite nice if it give you a base number and then tell you the modifiers when you mouse over it. But that's one area where the game doesn't tell you that stuff. So illness, I'm probably going to recover from that all right, because I'm only 25, I'm fairly young and healthy, and it's a bit worrisome if you're an older character, but generally speaking, it will clear up. So, yeah, as you can see, I'm trying to get my way into Wales there, but she's got another couple of years. Yeah, that's another 6 years. I do have heirs though, which is fine. And he is 7 now apparently. Jedi the Third, Jedi McJedi the Third. So this siege is going apace. I was wittering in the way in the meantime, but you got to do something while the sieges are going. We'll actually make that a bit faster. And that's the one thing that sieges in this can be. It's like there are some things that this does in a nice way compared to EU4, but then there are things that EU4 does in a nice way compared to this. There's no kind of quite, neither of them's quite perfect. And I do like the fact that sieging is an entirely linear progression, and you can see the exact progress in this. Whereas in EU4, it's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more modifiers involved, and there's things like siege phases, and sieges can go on for a really long time in EU4. But it's better than it used to be, and there are things you can do to improve that, like have artillery pieces and have a general with a good siege skill. Will really, that'll really speed things up as well. Okay, the Duke of Gwynedd is in the war now, apparently. Don't think that's much of a threat. And that's England's trying to take Cumberland back from Denmark, and Denmark is getting thoroughly owned. But they would have incurred a significant combat penalty from coming ashore. Making an amphibious landing like that and fighting from an amphibious landing, generally very bad. And it's kind of weird that the AI didn't just send their ships round, land in Cumberland, and just offload the troops there in friendly territory. I don't know why the AI didn't do that, but that's kind of weird. A rather handsome neighbour keeps sending me envoys begging for money or demanding tributes. I feel rather confused about his arbitrary ways. I'm not sure what I should do. Roses, I think, generally has the better outcome. It's one of these. I think it's one of these slightly random events, but yeah, Denmark's just getting totally owned there, aren't they? It's a little rascal who gave his newest toy to the Smith's son. Oh, I don't know, hanging out with the the peons though. Charity is for naive weaklings. I could deliberately try and make a really mean character, but I will just I'll go for the positive traits because he's got a decent set of stats already for an 8-year-old, so he might turn out to be a good adult in that regard. I should also have a quick look. There we go, we've won the first phase of the siege, and that's given me a fair whack of war score there. I should actually have a look and see who will do for awarding this county title to. Now, I don't have a lot of people in the court, unfortunately, so it might well be this guy. Colban de Melrose, okay. And I've actually, we'll see if we can ransom her right now, because... can I not... Why is it showing the daughter? I want actually to try and ransom her. Yes. If I'm going to take the province and have it be my own province, that current character will effectively disappear from the game. So it's better to get the money from them right now, basically. So sometimes you have to be you have to think about the little things in this game. You have to think, can I ransom this person right now and actually get some money before I actually just remove them, at which point you're not going to get any money from them because they're not going to be around anymore. Excuse me while I just have a drink. So this is going pretty nicely. I think once we've gotten this second holding, we might actually just have won outright. I also suspect, there we go, that Denmark's going to lose that. They've got no way to hold on to it. They did land a fairly hefty army, they just did it in a really stupid way, so it's effectively cost them the war. And once England takes control, they'll get ticking war score, and Denmark will eventually be forced to concede defeat sooner or later. So we will take that off him. This is now my province, and I am going to we'll just dismiss that army, so that's not costing me anything anymore. What was I looking at? My court. There we go. I am going to... I could give it to this guy. He's German. Why not? He's got a good intrigue skill. He's got a decent everything skill. Okay, we'll grant him the County of Tyrone. And County of Tyrone is not involved in an ongoing war. Why are we at war with Oriel? Oh, because they declared war for that county. They took advantage of the fact that I was attacking to also declare war on that same character, but because I won, because that title is now mine, and because the war is tied to the title, I'm now at war with this guy as well. Okay. Let's see if I can march my army out of there post-haste and actually get some war leaders assigned to that as well, because that's going to be a bit bad if they get caught out. Are they going to make it out in time? We don't care if they get sieged or not, so I actually need to re-raise my troops and get them all there, get them grouped up. Now I'm not going to get any kind of titles out of this, although I apparently get a nice defensive bonus, so even though they're outnumber me 2-1. These bonuses, by the way, terrain bonuses, it's the same in EU4. They matter an awful lot. So, like I was saying, any kind of amphibious attack or attacking across, like if it's got this icon, for instance, in a province, you're gonna have a penalty for attacking somebody across a river, which you really don't want. So it always pays to sort of pay attention to the ground that you're going to be fighting on, the provinces that you're going to be fighting in. So I'm still getting a positive balance. Well, actually, we'll have the whole lot because I can siege their province that much faster. So I... oh yes, that's right, I was marrying her off. And it's going to be a matrilineal one, so the dynasty will continue. But we'll go for that. Why not? Commission for some family chronicles. I said that in an overly elaborate way. I don't know why. And there we go. So a matrilineal marriage, for those that don't know, means that oh, because she's a different dynasty, so it doesn't matter. But it keeps that dynasty going. I did want that to happen, didn't I? Yes. It basically means that any children will be of the mother's house, basically the mother's dynasty, which, as a last resort, you know, it's quite useful if you don't have any male heirs. Then you might, or you've only got one male heir and you've got a bunch of daughters, you might want to marry one of them matrilineally, so you have a chance to get some male heirs through her. So it's a way of, you know, you want to have a decent number of the family spread around the place as to ensure your dynasty's survival. A good way to do it later on is if once you've got, you know, several sons or whatever, you give some of them some lands, and then if they've got a fief of their own, they can, you know, they'll set up, you know, they'll marry, they'll find their own people to marry and get their own families going, and you can make them dukes and whatever, and yeah, it'll take care of itself after a while. But if you're creating a new dynasty, if you're creating characters in this game yourself, rather than taking, you know, just picking a country and playing it as is, it can be a bit tricky in the early game because you're basically starting off with a dynasty of one. So he lacks all ambition. This will not do. We don't want a content king. Although I think if you're a king, you tend to lose content over time anyway. Content is a good trait to have in your vassals. They're less likely to rebel. And conversely, if they are ambitious, they're more likely to rebel. So ambitious vassals are always to be watched out for. So I'm really, you know, I've got such a numerical advantage here. I've got that many besieging troops that this particular siege is going quite quickly, but we'll make it go even quicker and speed up a bit. And we might get some nice money out of this game, this war. Even if I don't, I will get some prestige out of it. So we'll offer peace. Enforce demands. I will get 56 gold and 150 prestige. So there we go. Sometimes it, you know, wars will get you money, but it's a lot harder to do than in EU4 when you can explicitly, you know, you can set your own war goals. You have to have a reason to declare war in EU4, but then you can add on different war goals. You can ask someone for money. So you can start purely financial wars. You can start wars with a rich neighbour just to then beat them and take their money. You can't really do that in CK2. You can sometimes get money out of wars even so, but you can't have it as an explicit war goal, unfortunately. So we'll march these guys back over to the mainland. I will set this guy up as... what I could actually do is I could give the title to him. And as he's matrilineally married to my half-sister, basically this dynasty will take over, you know, whatever heirs. So it won't be a premislid, I don't know how you say that, but it'll be a dukas instead that will take over, that will inherit that county, rather. Not that county, that's a different county. Well done, me. Right, award honorary title, no, I'm looking at the wrong person. Grant landed title, and we will give the county of Tyrone. People always like you when you give them a county. So vassal inheritance warning, because at the moment his direct heir is in fact the Duke of Bohemia. But once my half sister, this character here, has some kids, it will then go to her kids instead. So it will all stay inside the realm. So it's a little bit risky if she immediately dies, or if he dies right now, this instant. Then that would actually become part of the Holy Roman Empire. Yeah, these things can happen. With the higher sets of... I think you need... yeah, if you have high crown authority, and you can see their effects, vassal titles can no longer pass outside the realm through inheritance. So if you have a high enough crown authority, that stops being an issue. But getting up to high crown authority can be tricky. So here we go, this is a follow-up event to one of the earlier ones. Not many days yet. No, it's only been months and months and months later in game times. But no, it's not many days apparently. He was most grateful and deeply touched by the red roses I sent him. So I can get an immediate gain of 20 piety, or we'll click on that and see what happens. That might trigger a further event. I'll also have a quick look at my council just to see if there's anybody that could be better suited. And again, this is the thing you just want to do every so often. We can see there we've actually got someone who has an ambition, and it's always good if you spot somebody who's got an ambition to fill a particular role and they've already got a high skill, because then they get a bump for fulfilling that ambition. So he was a 15. By making him the court chaplain, I've now got a 16. A guy with 16 learning. So that's always worth looking out for those things as well. And no, he's not better. I mean, I've got a pretty good set of councillors here as well. My marshal is absolutely exceptional. Well, I've got some very good characters in terms of martial score. We'll actually recall him. He'll be useful for actually leading troops with that kind of score. Although, you know, the higher the score as well, the more effective these various actions are. So sometimes you'll want to use them for one thing, other times you'll want to use them for another. Now he would like to become the Chancellor, and again, at the moment that's equal, 17 and 17. Now, of course, the downside is the person that gets fired from the council then has that puts a minus 20 onto their relations with you. But by appointing him, I make him like me a bit more. And if we unpause, we'll see he's going to. Oh wow, I can't unpause because this here is here, but he will go up to 18. So I can get the gardener trait, which gives me +2 stewardship, and my current stewardship is 12. +2 would get me 14, which would get me, well, will get me extra income. So, you know, that's quite nice. These hobbies, whatever you want to call them, lifestyle traits, they're quite nice. They're quite useful, some of them. They give you some pretty good bonuses. So, again, we'll fast forward. There's not that much doing right now. I actually do need to, because I've changed everybody around, need to send him down to... Actually, having... let's just check, actually. I might still technically be in truce with him. I don't think I am, actually, because of the way I entered into war with that guy. I think I could declare war on him without being in the truce period. Also, I didn't need to give that county away, because I've picked up an extra, you know, but I might save up enough cash to build another holding in one of my counties. They're quite expensive, though, as you can see. 700 gold. It's not an investment to be taken lightly. And, yeah, Cumberland's gone back to the English. Oh well. So we'll fast forward, and we'll come back if anything interesting happens. Well, I've skipped over a few things. I thought about jumping back in, but yes, my betrothed came of age, the petty queen, or, well, duchess, really, of Dehubar. So I married her, and she's now calling me into a war. And marriage is the primary way you get, in fact, it's the only way you can get alliances in this game, by marrying people or marrying the relatives of people. So she's calling me into a war, and I will accept, because I would like to defend her title. And it's against somebody with one province, so it's not really that big of a deal. The other thing is, I've got quite a lot of cash now, and as you can notice, one of my dukes is also having a bit of a barney with one of their vassals. So what I'm going to do is, I was talking about building another holding, and instead of building another holding for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a city vassal in Gowrie, because Gowrie has got enough slots that I could then build another castle there potentially later on. But what that's going to do is that's going to give me more money over the long run. It's a very long-term investment, but cities are basically one of the better ways of making cash. And what I could potentially do at some point is, if I had a spare ducal title, I could actually make a city the primary holder of the county title, at which point the city then swaps to being... If you do it with either a city or a bishopric, it then swaps to become the kind of primary holding. And if you give them a ducal title, they then become a grand merchant republic in the style of Venice, or in the style of what Venice would be if Venice hadn't been taken over by mercenaries. I still think that's hilarious, by the way. I've never seen this before, mercenaries taking over Venice. But is Amalfi? Yeah, Amalfi is a trading a republic. So I can basically create my own pet trading republic, and that will give me lots of income. So this is all very long-term investment, and I do have actually a spare ducal title. I am Duke of the Western Isles, so I could potentially give them that, and that would actually then put me down in terms of, you know, less direct holdings, but more money. So that's the thing I'm going to do in the long term. I'm going to create another city there. In fact, you know, I've got an existing city. I could create that city, and I could do it all right now. How about that? Shall we do it? This is how you create a Grand Republic in this game as a vassal. So I go grant landed title, and I go give County of Gowrie, and then I say grant landed title, and I say give. Shall we give him Duchy of? Well, the thing is, neither of them are geographically anything to do with where he is. But we'll say Galloway. That's at least a mainland one. I'm going to keep the Duchy of the Isles for myself. And ba-bam! And there we go. And we get a bunch of messages about a new house. Now the thing is, it's actually all right. It's sometimes it will create a bunch of these patrician families, and then it gives them all the same surname, but it's actually given them all separate surnames, separate houses. So that is how you create a vassal Grand Republic. And if we look at Republic trade zones, of course, having just created them, they won't be doing anything, but eventually they will create something like this. And this is the kind of, the trading in this game works a lot differently, but basically the more trading zones that your pet republic actually controls, you can see there Pisa's doing quite well for itself down in the Mediterranean, then the more money you get. So that could be a big long-term financial advantage. And the thing is, even if you aren't necessarily, you know, if England attacked right now, maybe they would have more troops than me, but if I could hire lots of mercenaries, that wouldn't actually matter that much. So having a good income is a good way to overcome not having enough troops. So I've been called into this war. I'm not even sure if I need to do anything, but I think what we'll do is we'll have a quick look. And oh, apparently that is oh, there we go, because it can pull characters out basically. So there are people that are no longer my direct vassals, and if they were on the council, they're no longer on the council. So what I will do is we will raise some ships and some troops. Now, figuring, I don't want to raise all of them, but I'm figuring out how many I need to raise for a given amount of troops. If I send, say, 2,000 troops, and then that only requires a couple of ships, potentially 12 ships should be enough. I'll send them to Moray, and speed that up slightly. Now the kind of direct negative consequence of what I've just done is I can raise fewer troops directly, slightly fewer troops. It's not actually that much, all things considered. It was only about 500-600 troops. So that's a bit of a negative impact, and I also get less direct income, but in the long term I will get hopefully more income. So I have been given an option. We'll go adopt his ideas, because faster technology spread rate is always nice. And is this enough ships? No, it's actually 22 ships I need. So I need some ships from here, which is 20 ships, and 21 ships. You can't get exactly the right number, unfortunately. You have to just kind of bodge it a bit. Okay, here we go. A global event. And he has... I don't know if that means he's called for a crusade, or if it means he is... that it's now a possibility that people can call for crusades. So, get my ships all together. We'll get the troops loaded up, and we'll actually get the ship down there first. Now we can see there that my wife, the petty queen of Difed, or Difed, or however you say that, she's actually already sieging that province, so we're safe just to march these guys in already. And we'll actually, when we finally get some cash for these people, I might just release them, to be honest. You get people hanging around your prisons long enough, and it just starts to look untidy, frankly. So that was that message was yeah, someone who'd been called in, but it doesn't really matter, because by the time they've marched all the way around, this siege might well be over. So we'll actually just check what's the war goal here. She's actually declared war on them. And there we go. See, there's a crusade that's been called. So that initiates some special conditions. You can actually mouse over and you can see Catholic Crusade for Jerusalem. Now, they tend to just fizzle out. And that's because it's, you know, as was true in real life, it's quite hard to get a significant number of troops over there. And usually this area is held by somebody, you know, either the Seljuk Sultanate or, as is this case, the Fatimids are really quite powerful in that whole region. So you're turning up with maybe a couple of thousand troops and you land them and then suddenly you get your army squashed. So it's actually quite hard to win a crusade in this game. It's not impossible, but it's one of the more difficult things to do. Tearfully, she told me her son, that my son, had insulted her again. But my dear lady, you are fat. Let's go with that. Honest isn't a terrible trait, but it does have some negatives on it. Yeah, -2 intrigue. He's got great diplomacy, though. He's going to turn into a real diplomat at this rate. So we'll finish up this war, and we'll wrap up the video, because I've been talking for a bit, and my throat's actually starting to hurt now. I think by the time I've edited everything out and stuck that first bit on I recorded on the front, we'll probably have about a usual length video. Torturing a rat behind the stables, oh my. Talk to him about kindness. And he hasn't, oh, he's gained the, no, he still has the cruel trait. And I have a son, hooray! And he is now the heir to this duchy. As you can see there, it's red, which means it's a non-dynastic heir, so basically it's, you know, sucks for her, but it's great for me. You always want to be on the lookout for it tends to be countesses rather than, you know, or female rulers rather than male rulers. But if you are yourself playing as, you know, if you have ended up with a female character, it can still be possible to get a matrilineal marriage with somebody with a title. It just seems to be a lot harder to do. The game, you know, the way it's stacked, they're less likely to actually accept. So we've won that. That is now, as you can see, an independent county. Is it just the title she went for? No, I don't know what that was. Okay. I clicked away the results screen a bit too quickly there, clearly. So, I'm just going to dismiss those. No, dismiss the fleet. Fleets are quite expensive to maintain. You can end up sending somebody somewhere, you know, an army over somewhere and then just having to dismiss the fleet that took them there, because otherwise you just end up losing all your money. Also, apparently the Duchess of Oxford, well, Weiss, I think, is revolting. Oh, apparently. That's good for me. And also, it looks like Lothian is... oh, he has actually joined in the crusade. Now, the thing is, you can actually... I think... Do you click that? Yes, you click that. These are all the people that have joined in this crusade. But it's very disjointed, and you tend to end up with lots of people with like 0 war score or a couple of %. And generally they just fizzle out. So, but that'll be the next episode. We'll see how that goes. I might even join in. It might be a bit of folly, but we'll see. I'll decide at the time. I'll see how I feel, if I'm feeling sufficiently pious or not. But as it is, I think we've had some interesting things. You know, we've got a vassal republic under our thumb, which will hopefully bring us lots of money. We have increased our territory slightly. I have got a second heir, just in case. Never pays to have all your eggs in one basket in this game, believe me. And I've also, you know, increased 1 or 2 stats, which is quite nice. So, all in all, I feel we're doing all right. And at some point, maybe not the next session, but the session after that, or maybe the next session, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If you know, if England starts getting lots of rebellions, we might maybe think about making a couple of moves against them. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. So, if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button. You can leave any comments, suggestions particularly. I'm always open to those. You can leave those below. You can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.